Hi everyone. It's exciting to be joining you, even if remotely, at the DEGROWTH Festival in Copenhagen. What a nice format. There are quite a few DEGROWTH conferences that have some sort of festival features, but I think a festival on DEGROWTH is extremely exciting. So I'm sure that there are many familiar faces and a lot of new faces, and that you're having very stimulating discussions on degrowth thinking and action. So today my intervention is on the political subjectivity of nomadic utopianism and basically how this is something that can help to further enable the decolonization of imaginary in degrowth. So utopias, these are basically ways to envision a world differently and to envision futures, better futures. So, and when it comes to degrowth, we are envisioning futures that are both ecologically sustainable, socially just, and where human flourishing is so central. So overall, we're thinking of how to live well within ecological limits, within societal limits, and ethical limits, and how everyone on the planet can live well. So not only the global north and all the richest, but how all, with all kind of in capital letters, how everyone can live well. I would also say that definitely utopia is understood as something that allows building of alternatives in degrowth and not as something that is unattainable. So this is what utopia of degrowth is about. And what we think is that it is achievable. So the notion of concrete utopia, referring to the work of Bloch or Illich, has been very important for degrowth thinking. So saying that the utopias we're talking about, they have concrete kind of features, so we can identify what an alternative political economy would look like. What are the kinds of values that would be part of a degrowth society? So what are the kinds of cultures that would be also part of a degrowth world? So, however, what I'm going to say here is that it is important to go beyond visions. So a concrete utopia of degrowth is extremely important and has been articulated by a lot of people who are part of the degrowth discussions. But I would argue that this is not enough. So what I mean here is that having a vision doesn't mean that things will somehow magically fall into place. That having a vision and perhaps some kind of key ingredients that they can all come together into a recipe of building a degrowth society. No, that's not how it works. So basically, building an alternative future is a complex and messy process, and even organizing for a better world comes with a lot of tensions and contradictions, and it is very important to be aware of those and to reflect on them. So this is kind of, this message is what we have developed in the introduction to the book, Towards a Political Economy of Degrowth, and this is something that I'm building on here. And I think that nomadic utopianism is a key, let's say, term to complement the utopian vision of degrowth by a particular political subjectivity, so by a particular way of thinking and acting that is part and parcel of building alternatives. So nomadic utopianism is a concept that we are borrowing, that we are kind of engaging, where we are engaging with the work of David Bell. So it was part of his PhD thesis, the elaboration of that concept. And then in the introduction to our book, we engage with it in relation to degrowth. And here I'm kind of continuing that line of thinking. So basically, it's not also only us who have stressed that it is important not to think only of utopian visions, but also utopianism as a process of building alternatives. So, for example, Viviana Asara and colleagues have warned in their work against pseudo-concrete utopias. So, knowing that, okay, a concrete vision can also become stale, and we should be careful about kind of building too rigid ideas, let's say, of what degrowth is about. Or Uk March and Yorgos Kallis in their work on utopianism of degrowth, and where they engage with Ursula Le Guin's work. So they also stress utopianism as key to the kind of process of building alternatives that is in line with degrowth thinking. So this is also something that we want to highlight when talking about nomadic utopianism. So it is not only about the vision, but the process of building that vision. But also the nomadic is kind of a key term that we're introducing here, engaging with David Bell's work, because the idea is that the vision and the process of kind of thinking about it, it's something that should come with a lot of openness. So openness to the different voices and to the different spaces and to the different vocabularies, let's say, so that the degrowth vision can be enriched by perhaps the spaces that we cannot even necessarily think about at a particular time and in a particular place. So the idea is that the richness of a degrowth vision, or a degrowth vision, can be enriched by different spaces and the different voices, and we should be open to the different kind of surprises that can challenge our vision of what degrowth is about. And overall, we should be reflecting on how we do degrowth and how we're building alternatives, on the power relations that surround this process, on the tensions and contradictions. And this should not prevent us from acting with courage and building alternatives, but this should be kind of part of the process of building alternatives. And this is something integral to how we can build degrowth futures that are in line with degrowth thinking. So just to give you a couple of examples, perhaps, so that it doesn't sound so abstract. So one is an example from degrowth practices, and that connects to a reading of the work of Filka Sekulova and colleagues, where they talk about community initiatives and what makes them in a way successful and sustainable. So they use a beautiful metaphor of fertile soil for degrowth alternatives. So, but I think also the work and what they highlight can be seen through the lens of nomadic utopianism, because what they stress in the community alternatives that they researched in the Barcelona region, that what was key to their kind of for them to thrive was diversity and multiplicity of factors that each kind of initiative embedded, and at the same time a way of engaging and thriving on a reflection around contradictions and tensions. So kind of being aware of what the various contradictory processes are, and acting upon them to build ultimately stronger and more resilient, in the vocabulary of the authors, organizations. So the other two examples that I will bring up are from the degrowth knowledge and movement building. So when I became part of degrowth discussions, now quite a few years ago, so since 2014, care was quite key to the vocabulary of degrowth, but you could see that it was not a very elaborated idea of what care was about. And also a critique that several people were bringing up was that the vision of degrowth was very much informed by a particular group, let's say, of people, so mostly middle-aged white men, and then that it was important to really open up this vision to other voices who were perhaps new to the degrowth discussion and who were coming from various other spaces, and that this was key to enrich the degrowth discussion. And basically, as a result of opening up the space of degrowth discussions, and rather than reproducing the same kind of messages that have been articulated, let's say, by several people, care has become much more central to degrowth thinking, I would argue. For example, with the founding of FADA, so Feminisms and Degrowth Alliance, which put feminist thinking and care very much to the forefront of degrowth discussions. So now it is not something that is like one part of degrowth thinking, but I think it is something that permeates through the various spaces in degrowth. And there is, of course, much more that we can do to integrate care to the center of degrowth thinking, but really the discussion has been enriched, and I would say the degrowth kind of vision has been also enriched by care becoming so key to it, with the various voices pushing this discussion. So, and then another example of nomadic utopianism in knowledge creation is the book that I have also co-edited together with friends and colleagues, mainly from Degrowth Vienna, on degrowth and strategy. So what we did, we took a concept which has very problematic connotations, which connects to basically the military and to business vocabularies. And we thought, okay, but we think that the strategy, it is important for degrowth discussion, because we have a vision of what degrowth is about, but we need to think how to bring that vision about. And here strategy can be helpful, but we don't want to reproduce the problematic understandings of strategy that have been key to discussions alien to degrowth. So then what we did is that we conceptualized strategy as a flexible mental map, so something that is really context dependent, and something that can also be amended in the process of building strategy. So strategy for us is not something that is stale and has to be implemented, but something that has a lot of flexibility based on the context, on the people involved, on the kind of various challenges that come up in working on a particular initiative, let's say, or campaign, and so on. So even if it's not, we did not use nomadic utopianism as a key term when we were thinking about strategy, but I think that this thinking of strategy through a nomadic utopianism lens is something that can be characterizing the process of our working on the book and on strategy. So to close, so I hope that these three examples kind of help you to think what nomadic utopianism is, so, and how to make it part of the work on degrowth that you are doing in the various spaces, or it doesn't have to be degrowth, but some kind of allied spaces that you might be part of. And what, again, I would like to stress is that It is not enough to have only a vision of what an alternative future is like, but to also be building this future with a lot of kind of self reflection, and then that includes doubts, that includes challenging the ways in which you're building things, which includes reflecting on the closures and contradictions that might be coming up in the process. And together, I hope that it will help to build more kind of powerful degrowth futures. So yes, I think that I will leave it here and have a fruitful discussion. Thank you. Bye-bye.